Hey, and welcome to my first video that I am putting up for Fractured Online. Just want to go quickly over what Fractured Online is and isn't. But Fractured Online is an isometric MMORPG. This game is very similar to Albion Online, but it has a more like realistic art style, and it's got a more tactical combat rather than the button mashing combat that is Albion. This game, you are going to start your character. You're going to start a starter class, which is going to give you some basic starter abilities for that pertains to that kind of class. But you are not locked in to any class. If you start off as a fire mage, you can very easily transition into ice mage, or you can start off as a rogue type character and develop your character into a fire mage later on and things like that. So there's no, this is classless, even though it kind of makes you pick a class in the beginning, but that's just so you get your starter abilities. So this game is not an MMO that has NPCs or quests or anything like that. You will not find any NPCs at all. We'll get into character creation, and I will show you the races that you can be and kind of explain them because the race you choose does have some impact, but not a lot. So if we hit create character, you're going to see there that there are three races, but the demons are not in yet. They're still in implementation. The demon race, the only thing you really need to know about these guys is once they are implemented in the game, the demon race is always red PvP, which means they can attack any player at any time, and they can be attacked by any player at any time. So the two races that you can be are going to be, our main races are going to be humans and wild folk. Humans, there are no sub races, you're just a human. And if we hit next, I'll show you that the differences between the two, one of the differences is humans will start off with, or they start off with +2 to all of the attributes and 150 luck. So you'll get +2 to strength, dex, intelligence, constitution, perception, which is like crit damage and stuff, and then wisdom. Um, and then if we go back, the wild folk, they actually have three sub races. One is going to be the blessed humans. These blessed humans, you can see that they do not get the 2 to strength and constitution, but since you're giving up a point in each of those, you're getting extra regeneration. The tiger sub race, the tigerkin, you can see here they get um, +4 to dexterity, but they don't get any extra intelligence or wisdom, which are both kind of mana based stuff. So if you're going to make a caster, then the Tigerkin may not be for you. You can make a Tiger caster, just know that you will not be able to get as much intelligence and wisdom as a different race. And then the Deerkin, um, so this race does not start with any extra constitution or strength. They get no extra, so their base stat is 6. So just know that you will start off with a lot less life than any other race, but you do get an extra 2 to intelligence. You get an extra 500 mana, and you get an extra 5% spell damage. So if you're going to play a caster and you're going to be a wild folk, the deer race is pretty good. Going back to this screen, you will see that the wild folk, both of these races start on a different continent. The wild folk have their own continent, and on that continent it is mostly PvE, and PvP is only allowed if you toggle into it, like if you toggle it on. And so if I'm a wild folk, or if humans come over to the wild folk continent and they're toggled as PvP on, as long as you're toggled as PvP off, they cannot attack you and you cannot attack them. The human continent is going to be the much more popular continent, and this, once you've reached your 40 hours of new player protection, you will be open for PvP if you're outside of a city. There are 22 cities in the game, two starter cities. You cannot be attacked while you're in a city, and there are 18 or 20 player-owned cities. And when I say player-owned, those are owned by guilds. Those cities will take guilds a lot of gold and a lot of upkeep resources to keep that city kind of up and alive. But even if you're a red player from a different guild, you can go to another guild city and be in a safe zone. So two different continents. Wildfolk continent. The continent itself is PVE mostly, and the humans will be PvP mostly. You can, no matter which race you choose, like you can choose a Wildfolk. You pick the deer race. You can move over to the human continent permanently, and you can join a guild over there, and you can live there, and you never have to go back here if you never want to. Same thing with the humans. You can make a human, and if you really wanted to, and the guild you're in is a strictly PvE guild, you could move over to the Wildfolk land and live there with your guild if you want as a human. So going through the different classes in the game, just to show you, you're only going to pick a starter class. It says background selection. These backgrounds are the classes essentially, but it's not really a. This game is a classless system. The difference in these are what your starting abilities are. So on your hotbar, you can have it up to a maximum of 8 abilities on your hotbar. Your class that you choose here will be what your starting 6 abilities are, and in the tutorial you'll get one more, and then you'll have to find your 8th one and any others that you want out in the world by killing mobs. So just a quick rundown: the gladiator starting abilities. You get 3 damage abilities for axes, so you're going to start off as an axe kind of melee brawler. The axes are very good at making your opponents and mobs bleed, and once they're bleeding, as long as Bloodlust is activated, you will now do extra damage on your auto attacks, plus it will heal you a little bit. So the sustain is pretty decent for a melee character, and then you get a movement ability. The bowman, you will start off with bows, and you will have spike trap does really good damage. Net trap will allow you, if anybody tries to gank you, you can trap them and run away. If you're trying to gank someone else, you can trap them and mow them down. And then your 3 damage bow abilities. Pyromancer, which is arguably probably the best starter class. You get 3 really high fire damage spells. You get a fantastic, probably the best movement ability. You get a self heal, and you get mage armor. Cryomancer, which is probably another one of the better builds. Cold damage in this game can freeze targets, so you get the same thing as mage for these 3, but you get your ice abilities. Aeromancer is your lightning mage. In this one, you're gonna get a different movement ability and some damage. Druid is starting off. Druids are like a melee mage, so they get some hammer abilities. So you'll be doing mace fighting with a hammer, and then they get some roots that also do damage and a self heal. Commander is more of a strictly tank and tank support um, kind of build. This is probably the worst one to start off as, just to the fact that the buffs don't really help you a whole lot um, in the very early stages, especially solo, and then the damage abilities that they start off with are not very high. Street Rat is your rogue class. You will start off with a invisibility spell and some damage abilities. Rogue is pretty hard to level up in the very beginning. You can only fight one mob at a time. All of your abilities only do single target damage, especially with the fact that most of your like knife fighting abilities, like dagger abilities, and your invisibility stuff, you have to be in light armor. Whereas even as a pyromancer, you can be in light or medium. So medium gives you a lot more protection. So the best thing to do is to choose a starter class that you think that you will like. I will tell you that pretty much any of the mages, especially Pyro and Cryomancer, which is ice, are better starting classes than the rest of these. Bows also aren't too bad as a starter class. Druid is not too bad as a starter class, but Pyro and Cryomancer are the best. Pyromancer does a lot of early high AoE damage, which is good for killing mobs. The reason why that is good to start off with is because, as I said, you can change your build at any time in this game. You can go from light armor to heavy armor. You can go from a pyromancer to or great axe wielder if you want. But the way you get the abilities to change into those other classes or to make your own class is by killing monsters. The more you kill monsters in this game, you will get knowledge of them, and the higher your knowledge is, they will give you more abilities. So being able to kill a lot of mobs in a short amount of time is the best way to get more abilities to start fleshing out your class. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my starter race and class, and you go ahead and do the same, and then we will see you for the part 2, where we will jump into the game and I will show you some basic functionality in the tutorial. You can pretty much skip the entire tutorial, or at least just speed run it, because you won't need to do anything else in the tutorial other than a few things. So in the next video, we'll go through really quickly the tutorial and what you should do and should not do, and then after that, we will get into the actual game.